My name is Paul Beard. I am the Chief of Police for the Oakley Police Department. My last name is spelled B-E-A-R-D. I will be addressing all of you today regarding some developments in our case of the Alexis Gabe disappearance. Also addressing you will be her father, Mr. Glenn Gabe. His last name is spelled G-A-B-E. I wanted to hold this press conference to inform the community and the media about some rather large developments that have occurred in the past 24 hours. I will answer as many questions as I can at the end of this press conference, but please understand there will be some questions I may not be able to answer because despite certain things that have happened, certain big things that have happened, this is still a very active and a very open investigation, and I will not be able to speak to certain things. And that is due to the fact that we still need to maintain the integrity of this long-standing case. The main priority of the Oakley Police Department is to provide safety and security to our residents. Another main priority is to conduct investigations of criminal acts, and that's what we believe has occurred here in Oakley over the past few months, and that's what has kept us very busy. Alexis Gabe was an Oakley resident who was last seen on January 26th in the city of Antioch. We have been involved with investigating her disappearance every day since she was reported missing. Our investigation into the disappearance of Alexis Gabe has consumed the men and the women of my department, and she has been our primary focus since this investigation was initiated. Her disappearance has been both heartbreaking and frustrating. It has taken an emotional and a physical toll on all those involved in the investigation. Our investigation is not going to end with this press conference today. We still have a lot of work to do. Our search for Alexis has been a very vigorous one. We have literally searched for her via land, sea, and air. We will continue to do so as we get information that indicates we should do that. Due to the information that has been yielded during our long and intensive investigation, I must announce at this point that we believe that Alexis Gabe is the victim of a homicide. We believe that homicide occurred in the city of Antioch. The members of the Antioch Police Department partnered with the Oakley Police Department, in particular, Oakley Police Department Police Detective Tyler Horn. That partnership occurred at the very initial stages of her disappearance. Our two departments have walked through each step of this investigation together, and we will remain in alliance with one another until there is positive resolution to this case. Part of what has led us to believe Alexis is the victim of a homicide is the examination of a large amount of digital and forensic evidence that has been recovered over the course of several search warrants and over several acts of labor done by both departments. In conjunction with that is there is a fact that there are no signs of life anywhere for Alexis. Some examples of the digital and forensic evidence I mentioned are as follows. Early on in this investigation, the Poly Class Foundation came to Oakley several times. I think it was 3 times they came to town. During one of those searches, a cell phone case was found in Antioch near Bent Tree Lane, where our suspect resides. That cell phone case was positively identified as that of Alexis's personal cell phone case. That case was examined, and it was found to have the DNA of Marshall Jones inside of it. As I previously stated, this cell phone case was located near Marshall Jones' residence, and it was an empty case without a telephone attached to it. Some digital evidence came in the form of thousands of phone records. Digital evidence also came in the form of the image of Marshall Jones being captured on several surveillance cameras, which led him on a path from where Alexis's vehicle was dumped in Oakley to his home on Bent Tree Lane on the evening of January 26, 2022. Further digital evidence was the fact that Alexis's vehicle was equipped with a GPS system. An examination of that system showed a direct path leading that vehicle from Marshall Jones' house to where it was dumped in Oakley on the night of January 26, 2022. And that dump location was a fairly well-known location by now. It was at the intersection of Trenton and Carrington Road here in Oakley. Our joint investigation has led us to believe Alexis's ex-boyfriend, a man full name of Marshall Curtis Jones, a 27-year-old male and a resident of Antioch, killed Alexis at his home on or about January 26, 2022. Marshal Jones has been very uncooperative during our joint investigation, and he has refused to speak with us several times. This has done nothing but prolong our investigation. We presented a case to the District Attorney's Office seeking criminal charges against Marshal Jones for the homicide of Alexis Gabe. Last week, the District Attorney's Office did file the criminal charge of murder against Marshal Jones, and an arrest warrant for Marshal Jones was also issued. Both of these actions were taken due to the amount of evidence and detail that our joint investigation yielded, and we were able to present that to the District Attorney for that filing. The fact that we believe the homicide occurred in the city of Antioch does make the Antioch Police Department the primary agency for that aspect of the case. Due to the nature and how this investigation was conducted, we were able to determine the whereabouts of Marshal Jones for a majority of the time during this investigation. We factually know Marshal left California and went to the state of Washington within days of the disappearance of Alexis Gabe. Marshal Jones did return to California for a short period of time last month, but he then returned to the state of Washington, where he had a small network of family and associates. Yesterday, detectives from Antioch and Oakley Police Departments were in Washington. Due to the fact that Marshal Jones was considered a fugitive from justice, we started working with a federal task force headed by the U.S. Marshals Service. Our investigation revealed to us Marshal Jones was staying at the residence of an associate in Kent, Washington, which is a suburb of Seattle, Washington. The federal task force and the detectives from the Oakley and Antioch Police Departments went to the residence where Marshal Jones was and attempted to serve the arrest warrant of him for the sole purpose of taking him into custody. Marshal Jones responded by coming out of the front door with a knife, and he charged those officers. Marshal Jones was shot because of his deadly and threatening actions. He died at that scene. We understand the death of Marshal Jones impacts an investigative avenue for us, but we are still determined to continue with our investigation. Some other duties that we undertook yesterday in Washington was to recover several electronic devices of Marshal Jones, and we will bring those to California. We will examine those electronic devices to see if we can source any clues out of those devices. There are still, last month I announced to everybody that we had started a reward foundation. That reward started at $10,000. It grew to $50,000. That reward is actively sitting at $100,000. That reward is still available to anybody who leads us to Alexis. To repeat, we do understand the death of Marshal Jones is not what we had hoped for. But we do hope somebody who has knowledge of Alexis' whereabouts will now feel more empowered to come forward without having to feel a negative response from Marshal Jones. I wish to thank the Antioch Police Department and the Contra Costa District Attorney's Office for all their support and assistance during this very long and intensive investigation. I also wish to make sure that I state that I and all members of the Oakley and the Antioch Police Departments stand in support of the Gabe family. By extension, they are part of our family now as well. With that, Mr. Gabe, do you want to address everybody?
What happened to Marshall was tragic and unexpected. My wife cried so hard last night upon hearing of his passing. He was our daughter's first love. They were together for 3 years. He got along well with the two brothers and her cousins. He became part of our family. We had no idea he was capable of doing something like this to her. We didn't want him dead. We wanted him arrested to pay for his sins. We wanted to meet with him face to face. We wanted to look him in the eye and ask him why. Ask him, where is Alexis? I know the police are saying that our daughter's gone, but our daughter will remain alive in our minds and in our hearts. We will continue to search for her until we find her. I'd like to say thank you to the hard work and dedication given by these members of law enforcement, especially to Detective Tyler Horn, who's still in Washington, Lieutenant Logan Cartwright, Chief Paul Beard, and the rest of the team at Oakley Police Department. Also, Detective Stenger and his team at Antioch Police Department. To everyone who assisted these guys in Washington, thank you so much. Oakley and Antioch PD have been working on this case for 4 months straight, nonstop. They've invested so much and they deserve all the credit. I'm saying this just in case someone tries to schedule another press conference and takes full credit of what went down yesterday and the last 4 months. Thank you so much.
Thank you again for all being here and attending. I'm going to move into a question and answer period. Just please understand there may be some things that I cannot answer for you, but at this point I will open it up to questions. Sir?
In reviewing cell phone records, digital information, have you been able to establish why he might have killed him? Motive?
Yeah, motive is something that is still, we're still looking at that. We're still establishing what the exact motive may be.
Chief, did he confess at all, or did he make any statements to you? Did he confess?
As I previously stated, he has been uncooperative with us, so he has not spoken to us.
Did you talk to him at all at any point?
Early on, one of our patrol officers spoke to him, and I forget exactly why that contact was made. I think he was just doing a canvas area and came across him. I'm not going to remember what the verbiage was between the two of them.
Chief, it sounds like you guys had some strong evidence. You've been working on this case for 4 months. Can you help us understand why it took so long to issue an arrest warrant? Were there some obstacles, some big obstacles in the way?
The largest obstacle was the degree of difficulty in this case. It took the examination of all that information to get us to the point where we were able to get last week to have enough information and evidence to present to the district attorney's office.
When do you expect you'll be able to get those digital devices back down here for examination?
Before the weekend is up. That is not to say that they'll be examined before the weekend is up, but they'll physically be back in the state.
Will the FBI be joining in trying to crack those devices to get?
We will outsource and work with our partner agencies. The FBI may be one of those agencies. I can't anticipate that right now. I'll leave that to my investigative team.
Chief, do you suspect anybody else was involved in this and hiding evidence or, helping in any way?
I wish to make it very clear, Marshal Jones is our only suspect in the homicide of Alexis Gabe. However, I do believe he had help along the way to address the things you've exactly brought up in this press conference.
Could others be charged in this case?
That is a possibility.
Hey, Chief, did the district attorney's office delay the search warrant, the arrest warrant in any way?
No, did not.
Is there any indication how she was killed?
No.
Does this still remain a missing persons case?
No, this is now a homicide.
Chief, just to be clear, the person in that surveillance video, do you believe that was Marshal Jones?
I do. The investigative team does believe that was Marshal Jones. That was one image of many that our investigative team has in their possession now. Our investigative team was able to string those images together to show a behalf of Marshal Jones, walking from the area of Carrington and Trenton and Oakley to his home on Bentry in Antioch on the night of January 26, 22.
In going through this evidence, do you know, is there any evidence of when Ms. Gabe may have last been alive, like where she was last seen?
Not that I am privy to, but please understand, a lot of that evidence is still being examined, and we now have new evidence to look at. So more information may be coming forward because of this new evidence that we do have. Sir?
If you don't have a body, how do you call it a homicide?
The totality of this investigation led us to that point. As I previously stated, we have gathered enough digital and forensic evidence to suggest that is what happened, in conjunction with there is no evidence of life coming from Ms. Gabe. Ms. Gabe lived a lifestyle much like a normal person. You know, we would expect to find certain things indicating she was alive, such as financial and cell phone type records and that sort of thing. And those things have been completely absent.
Do we know why he went to Washington?
He has a small network of people up there, so you know, I would say that's the reason.
Does he have any family here?
Yeah, he does. He does. He has some family here, at least a mother that I'm aware of.
Has the family here been cooperative?
I'm sorry?
Has his family here been cooperative?
I would say not to the fullest extent.
If there's a GPS in the vehicle, you know the vehicle left his house and went to the other address, were you able to identify where else the vehicle stopped along the way?
It didn't stop along the way. It came straight here. On the evening of January 26, 2022, as far as the information I have, is that vehicle left the Bentry location and came straight to Carrington and Trenton here in Oakley.
Do you have any idea, are there any areas that you plan to search, or do you think she could be in Washington? Do you think she's here in the Bay Area somewhere?
For that, I need the public's help. And I need for the public to get motivated to bring forth information that will tell us what we need to search. And again, I'm hoping that our $100,000 reward will motivate the public to bring that information to us.
Do you think somebody out there knows where she is?
Do I think
Somebody out there knows. I mean, Marshall's dead, but do you think?
I do. I do think that.
Do you suspect that he drove from here to Washington? She may have been in the car with him?
No, I don't.
Do you think she's here in California?
I have no evidence to suggest she's in Washington. I think she's in California.
Who do you think knows where she is that he said? Somebody knows.
I think Marshall had a small network of people that surrounded him. There are people that we still need to track down and speak to, and so we will be working towards identifying those people and speaking to them.
And you don't know why he killed her or did that?
I do not.
Prior to this, was he a known felon, or was he known to your department for committing any other kind of acts, violent or not?
He is not a known felon as far as I'm concerned, and he was not known to the Oakley Police Department.
Any registered weapons?
He does have a registered weapon, yes.
Do you know what he did for a living?
Blue collar work. I don't remember exactly what it was at this time.
In what field?
Telecommunications, it was along those lines. I'm sorry, this is the end result, folks. I really am. I want everybody in this room to understand that we do stand in support of Mr. and Mrs. Gabe and their whole family. And I hope the community at large does the same thing. And if there are no further questions, I'm going to draw this to an end.
I just wanted to clarify that the home he was at, where he was killed last night or yesterday, was that friends, family, or who lived?
As far as I know, being here in California several hundred miles away, that was an associate of his.
So a friend,
A
basically.
friend, yeah.
And you said he left shortly after January 26th to go to Washington?
Yes.
Been up there ever since?
No, he came back to California one time, and then he went back to Washington.
She Chief, what prompted the second search at his residence?
That would have to be something that would be best answered by our investigative team, and I don't have access to that right now.
Did you think he'd come back to that house?
I do think he was back at that house for that return visit to California, yes.
Was there a piece of evidence that, sort of tipped this case, like it's time to arrest him now? Was there like a, key piece?
Totality. This investigation was a very forensic and digitally driven case. And it's not like you find one thing and that's your aha moment. It's you just layer things on top of each other and you piece things together to draw you to a conclusion. And that's what we finally got.
I want to clarify something. On the 26th, are we saying that the ex-boyfriend Jones is the last one to see her? Who's the last person besides him to see her?
As far as I know, it is Marshal Jones.
Chief, do you have a picture of Mr. Jones?
I don't have it with me. We can make that accommodation. I don't have it with me.
Let's do the question. How important was the family's involvement in everything that you guys were doing?
So I've been in law enforcement for 32 years. I previously worked a homicide assignment for another agency where I worked. I have never come across a family like the Gabes that were so involved in the disappearance and the actual investigation of their loved one. The Mr. and Mrs. Gabe were absolutely vital in this investigation. They kept the memory, they kept the topic of Alexis very relevant and alive for the past 4 months. And I think that is exactly what was needed to best serve Alexis during this time.
Thank you, Chief.
But do you have anyone in Spanish that we